Hi, and thank you for tuning into this video. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about purpose of life, motivation in life, the driving force behind why we even get up in the morning and why we put one foot in front of the other and bother to feed ourselves, to sleep, to drink water. For each person, the motivation behind survival is different. Some people have huge goals for their future. They want to become wealthy or famous. They want to be the top of their field. They want to achieve huge success in some kind of a sport or some kind of an acting career, a singing career, a modeling career, a teaching career, a writing career, whatsoever it might be. Other people just do the bare minimum to get by because they feel like if they don't do the best they can to take care of themselves, they'll be letting others down. They have like a guilt complex around, say not paying their rent or not getting their groceries or not taking care of the people who depend on them. Some people are extremely ambitious, other people are more lazy, some people procrastinate, some people jump into work as if it's their motivation and excitement. How does this apply to each one of us as individuals? Well, basically, we can only see motivation through our personal experience, through our own context. And so when I say that I've been thinking about what drives all of us, what I mean more specifically is what drives me and what's driven me throughout different times in my life. I remember when I was a really little kid, like 4 years old, before I started school, every morning when I woke up, I was excited. Some days I had ballet lessons, some days I had swimming lessons, other days I'd go visit my grandparents, my mom would take me to the park. It was always exciting to wake up and do something. That changed when I started kindergarten in grade 1 and grade 2. And suddenly waking up in the morning wasn't an exciting adventure that I'm about to embark on. Waking up in the morning was a dread. Oh, I have to go to school again. I have to sit in that desk all day. I have to try to learn these things that are exceedingly hard. I struggled in school, guys. I wasn't one of the smart kids. And I wasn't a popular kid. I got bullied by everybody. It's interesting because when I think about joy and happiness and motivation, up to the time I started school, I was so enthusiastic and happy. But once I started school, I started to resent life. I started to wonder, why are we forced to do these things we don't want to do? When am I ever going to use what I learned in school in my practical day-to-day life? My mom tells me that when I was really little, like a toddler, like a little kid, I was always happy. She'd come to my room in the morning and I'd be sitting up in my crib or in my bed, playing with my stuffed animals, talking away, just excited. And that she felt really bad. She said the hardest thing a parent has to go through is sending their child to school and understanding that they have to accept the fact that the child is going to be changed, either pressured by the other kids or influenced by the teachers or influenced by the system itself, into a being, into a person that may no longer be relatable or understood by the parent. Imagine having this bright, shining, happy little one, and then you send them to school and they come back depressed and miserable and crying in the mornings. Anyhow, I've kind of derailed the topic a little here, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. And if not school, it might be getting a job, going to work, having maybe even somebody in your own home, like a roommate or a sibling who picks on you, and suddenly your excitement about life starts to dwindle. Because instead of doing what you want to do, you're forced to do something somebody else tells you you have to do. Or instead of having a cheerful atmosphere, a cheerful ambiance, you feel like you're being picked on or bullied. It's easy in situations like that to start blaming the outside world for our lower inner space, for our lack of happiness, our lack of drive. I remember when I was in high school, I became extremely depressed, agitated, even mean about the world because I felt like I was victimized. A lot of us go through that, so if you can relate, let me know in the comments. But I remember doing all kinds of research about the meat and dairy industries at that point in time, reading Peter Singer's brilliant book, Animal Liberation, reading the book Diet for a New America, reading Naomi Klein's No Logo, learning about sweatshop labor, learning about the different freedom fighters around the world, like the Zapatistas. I started reading Noam Chomsky. I started diving into all of those kinds of books and feeling as if the peers I was going to school with were at a lower level and I was at a higher level. I started putting myself above people, which made me even more alienated by those who should, for all intents and purposes, have been my friends. The moment we start to feel like life is us against them, like we're higher and others are lower, whether we think of ourselves as intellectually higher or spiritually higher or physically higher, if somebody is very athletic and they win all the competitions, they might think other people are lazy, even if those people are just less genetically gifted. The moment we start to think of ourselves as higher, the world is going to think of us as what? Snobby, elitist, a little bit arrogant, and people are going to start resenting us. When we feel other people are resenting us, we're going to resent them even more, and then a vicious cycle starts happening. We feel alone and as if we are fighting a war against our entire surroundings. I was a little vegan kid in Alberta, which is Canada's Texas. It's like the beef and oil capital of Canada. And I felt like I was against the industry polluting the atmosphere, the ozone layer. I was against the industry victimizing and killing animals. And instead of looking for a way to warmly embrace those who were still caught in those systems and share the uniqueness of my viewpoint with them, instead I became angry and I wanted to fight everybody. Well, what happens when somebody tries to fight you? You try to fight them back, right? And then you get less and less motivated because your agenda or your goal or your purpose, your driving force isn't succeeding. Because nobody wants to listen to an arrogant jerk lecture them about why they're wrong. And the same goes for every facet of life, whether it's vegetarianism or a religion. Somebody who's a hardcore Christian might genuinely believe that Christ the Lord is the Redeemer of all souls, and that if anybody doesn't bow to him, they're going to be doomed for eternal hellfire. But the moment they start trying to push that agenda down other people's throats, people start to resist it even more and start to hate Christianity. The same thing with Hinduism. I still feel immensely benefited by yoga, by meditation, by the sattvic diet, by the understandings of the chakras. However, I can see that I myself was becoming the Hindu equivalent of a Christian extremist, trying to push my viewpoint on others and literally bully people who didn't appreciate or believe in the practices that I felt were benefiting me in life. Again, it's an us against them dichotomy. That kind of a dynamic will always leave us feeling disappointed at the end of the day, because it's hard to reach the goal of helping people when you're constantly on the defensive or the offensive. When you're either trying to shield yourself and protect yourself because you perceive the world as being against you, or you start being aggressive towards others because you think you have something that they need. When it comes to joy and happiness and motivation in life, what I've discovered throughout my years of experience of going back and forth between happy, excited, and ambitious, and dark, depressed, and aggressive, is that when we're motivated by something that we love, that we're individually passionate about, and that we feel we can offer to others warmly, without disagreeing with them, without trying to push them away, without trying to force it down their throats, when we feel this openness to others and also an energy that we want to share with them, and where we're also grateful to receive what they have to share with us, suddenly our motivation starts to soar. People who are really shy, and I've been there, I was extremely shy when I was a kid, probably because of the bullying. When we're really shy and we're afraid of other people judging us, we should look at our inner space and see how we're judging others. Nobody is going to be afraid that other people are judging them if they're open-minded and non-judgmental. We get scared that people are judging us when we catch ourselves judging them. Similarly, when you feel like it's not worth even trying to achieve something because you're sure you're going to fail, and so you just give up and you start blaming external factors for your failure even though you didn't even try. An example of this could be somebody saying, there's no way I can get into university because that bitch high school teacher failed me in that class, and if she had just given me a chance and given me a better mark, then maybe I could succeed, but I might as well just give up and work a dead-end job that I hate because that's the best I can get since I was ripped off. I've heard people say this actually. Is that legitimate? Is that an authentic reason not to strive for a higher education? Definitely not. Even if some I don't like that word, sorry I dropped that word in here, but even if some perceived mean teacher gives you a failing grade and you feel like that has ruined your future, you can always go back to a community college and take a class to get a higher grade, high school equivalency. You can always try again. You can always write a new exam. The world is never going to close us off to opportunity when we're ready to take that responsibility for ourselves. If we blame those schoolyard bullies for our lack of desire to get up in the mornings, instead of just deciding that we're going to start taking our lives back into our own hands and having fun and finding people we can relate with and going out there and putting ourselves out there to make friends, putting ourselves out there to find like-minded spirits with whom we can connect, then of course we're always going to be holding ourselves back. The bully only hurts your feelings in the moment that that bully is bullying you. Afterwards, if you allow that bullying to make you continue to feel less than, or in another case, if you start to think of yourself as better than that bully and thus better than everybody else because you start perceiving everyone as bullies, you're never actually going to connect on a human level to the others around you. I feel like a lot of the time that I spent jumping into so-called higher spiritual practices, going to India, putting on the robes of a holy person, acting as if I was ready to be seated on a throne like that, the people I was emulating, those who I was taking as role models, were those who always perceived themselves as being bigger than, better than, more spiritual than, more realized than, more intelligent than everybody else. And yet, that perceived betterness or that perceived grandiose characteristic doesn't actually help anyone else. All it really does is make people either jump in and blindly follow you, believing that you have all the answers, or it makes people resent the hell out of you. When you actually want to be relatable to people, helpful to people, you have to remember that you are also one of the people. You're also one among them. And this is part of the arrogance that I'm dropping, and part of the reason, again, that I deleted a bunch of my old videos. My own mother told me she couldn't watch a lot of my videos because I was too preachy, and she felt like I was just ranting in all of them. And okay, yeah, I do get the case of the rambles. I do have a tendency to talk and talk and talk and talk. But there's a difference between talk, and ranting and lecturing and bossing people around. I'm starting to realize for myself, just because I hated waking up in the morning to go to school or to go to work when I was working in high-end fashion retail, that doesn't mean that mornings are to be dreaded now. I realized a lot of the patterns I was carrying in life that have held me back were patterns related to times and places and instances that are no longer going on. In my last video, I said, whoever lives in Toronto, let me know in the comments. Let's have a meetup. Let's go for coffee. I need to make some friends. I thought about that afterwards and thought, geez, did I come off as like needy and clingy? Like, oh my God, I have to reach out to strangers on the internet because I'm lonely, which is silly because I've got a great boyfriend, I've got a great family, I've got a great support system. I'm not lonely. What I feel I'm doing here is letting you guys know I am just like you. I'm not any smarter, I'm not any better, I'm not any more divine. I've just gone through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of transformations. I've learned a lot of things, I've kept a lot of what I've learned, but I'm also letting go of a lot of what I've learned. And the main thing that I'm letting go of is that arrogance, is that feeling of superiority. One of my friends from India, I'm not going to name any names here, I want to keep her privacy, intact because I still have a lot of respect for her. She heads a major department in the organization that I've left. And a lot of the time she spends on stage leading people into meditations, demonstrating, the benefits of those meditations. She told me once that her personality type always held itself as superior to others. From the time she was a little kid, she always felt entitled. There was one story she told me. She was walking past a Rolex store with her grandfather, who was a multimillionaire, and she looked in the store window and said, "I want that watch and that watch." And he promptly bought her both of those watches. And so when she meets people who say, "Gee, I wish I had a Rolex, but I can't afford it," she immediately feels like those people are not holding the right space of self-respect and, personal power to manifest what they want. And so she feels like she has to give them some of her confidence. And if they can just catch that confidence, they'll have all the Rolexes they want. Well, years ago, I watched The Secret. I've looked into Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction. I've researched all about vision boards and about holding the space, where you're receptive. And sadly, as I've seen so many people say, just feeling entitled and being open to receive is never going to get you a fancy watch or a fancy car or a perfect relationship or a huge house. Some people are born into wealthy families and they have that privilege. And with that privilege, sometimes comes a huge ego and a huge arrogance where they feel like they're entitled to everything, and people who don't have are seen as less than. What we should be thinking of, instead of seeing somebody who has something less than we have and thinking, "Wait a minute, that person's not as powerful as I am," what we should start thinking is, "Wait a minute, I have more than I need. Maybe I can share with that other." At the end of the day, a lot of religious people, a lot of spiritual people feel like sharing their quote-unquote realizations or quote-unquote experiences will be beneficial and helpful to the impoverished. But if you tell a starving child in Africa how to sit straight and breathe deeply and hold a space of receptivity and feel empowered, that's not going to put food in that starving child's mouth. What is going to put food in that starving child's mouth is generosity, pure givingness, being ready to literally bend over and feed that child. How many of us walk past homeless people every single day in the cities and don't actually give something to them? I know somebody here in Toronto, every day when he goes to work, it's like a 3-block walk, he brings extra food with him so that he can give food to every single homeless person, every single needy person he passes on his way to work. And he said that he feels like that's just common sense. It's common decency. It's common courtesy. He looks forward to his shift ending so that he can go and give things to people. There was one day he was on his way out to a theater. He brought a blanket with himself so that he could be comfortable while watching the movie. But on his way, he saw somebody who was freezing. It was a really cold day here in Toronto. So instead of bringing that blanket to keep himself warm, he saw somebody else who needed it more. And without even a second thought, without telling anybody he was doing it, without taking a selfie to show online, "Look at this charitable act, I'm so good, I'm so generous," he just gave the person that blanket. I've become suspicious of organizations, of people, of religious groups who give a little bit here and there and make a big deal online about that little bit that they've given. But I've become humbled and admiring of the people who just go about their lives doing what they do, being good, being kind to others. I've made a lot of videos about veganism. I've made a lot of videos, even now I'm wearing my vegan t-shirt. Good timing, right? I've made a lot of videos about why I believe in animal rights, why I feel it's not our place to eat the dead bodies of animals who were raised and murdered for meat, or to drink the milk that was intended to nourish a baby calf, or to wear cosmetics that were tested cruelly on animals. But I've never gone to the front lines. I follow groups now on Instagram that actually go to slaughterhouses to rescue animals from death. I follow groups that follow behind feedlot trucks disrupting that industry, talking to the drivers, questioning their motivation, literally like on the front lines of a war, but instead of fighting people with brute force, they're awakening people with compassion. And my eyes tear up because I think, wow, I've talked a big talk. I've avoided those products. But what have I actually done? Just a couple days ago here in Toronto, a truck transporting cows on the way to a slaughterhouse got into an accident on one of the highways, and a vegan happened to be behind that truck in traffic and live streamed the whole gruesome scene, showing cows getting hit by cars, showing cows bloodied, wandering around in a daze. The local news made jokes about that. They made light of the situation. Cows on the highway, as if it's a really funny thing that slowed down traffic. But that one vegan who was in, I don't want to say the right place at the right time because it was the wrong place at the most horrifying time, but actually got practical and did something real. She got out of her car and she started talking to the other drivers, seeing tears in their eyes also, meat-eating people, beef-eating people, having real tears, seeing the sadness, the pain, and the suffering of those cows. And that made a bigger difference than any of my videos could have possibly made in the lives of the onlookers. When I think about what motivates us in life, what drives us in life, what makes us want to wake up in the morning, what makes us happy, for me personally, I always come back to the same few passions, the same few joys, and the same few causes that I feel very, very strongly about. When it comes to joy and passion, I love making jewelry, ornamentation, doing my makeup. Yes, I get a little creative. Some people think it's too much, but I like things like this green eyeliner and red lipstick. I love making jewelry like this beaded necklace or these dangly earrings or this stack of bracelets I'm wearing. I find that fun. I love drawing abstract pictures and painting paintings. I've got one literally right here that I started today. Those things make me happy. What makes me feel responsible and driven to make a change in the world? Stories like the story about that transport truck full of cows who were sad, who were bleeding, who were suffering, who were on their way to be slaughtered, who went through even more pain on that journey because of uncaring people who were just hitting them left, right, and center in the street, pissed off that they were getting slowed down on their way to wherever they were going. I get motivated to get up in the morning when I realize there are starving people out there who have much, much less than I have, who need kindness and compassion. A lot of people will say there's billionaires out there like Bill Gates, there's people out there who have huge sums of money. There's a disparity between the working class and this super rich, the ultra wealthy. It's the responsibility of the ultra wealthy to take care of the poorest of the poor. Well, I'm going to have to call BS on that. It's the responsibility of those who feel like the poorest of the poor shouldn't starve, shouldn't freeze to death to take care of them. What makes me want to get up in the morning and live my life and do well and move on from dramas of the past, mistakes of the past, some very public mistakes that I've made or lapses in judgment, is the realization that every single day is a new opportunity to make the world a better place than it was when I first wake up. And the same for you. What do you want to change in the world? What do you see as an injustice or as something that's unfair that you can make a valuable change to? Someone asked me recently, do I still believe in the Free Yourself from the International Conspiracy Against Enlightenment series that I made and deleted? The answer is yes. I still believe there should be no fluoride in our water because it's a neurotoxin. And if I can be outspoken and vocal about that and tell cities like the city of Toronto to stop polluting and poisoning our water, I'm going to do it. That's one reason to get up. I still feel that aspartame is a dangerous chemical. Again, it's a neurotoxin. And so telling companies that put artificial sweeteners in their things to stop doing it motivates me to get up. I still wouldn't want to wear clothing produced in a sweatshop. And so, signing petitions, maybe even starting petitions, speaking about it, educating myself more and more so that I know which brands to avoid, makes me feel passionate and motivated, just like veganism, having things that are fun. Sometimes people ask me in the comment section under these videos what they should do to open their third eye, or what they should do to awaken their kundalini, or what they should do to get liberation. At times, I've recommended gemstones for these things, meditation programs for these things, seminars for these things. And at that time, that's what I myself was doing. That's what I thought was the absolute best. But today, as I'm enjoying the blue sky, the fluffy white clouds, the sounds of the birds chirping, on this particular day, what I want to tell you guys is something a little different than what I've said in the past. For me, I feel it's more important to open our heart than to open our third eye. It's more important to live compassionately than to have that spiritual arrogance and ego that puts ourselves on a pedestal. It's more important to help somebody who's less privileged than we are than it is to try to suck up to the people who portray themselves as more spiritually powerful than we are. Sometimes giving someone lower a helping hand up is going to be better than climbing and forgetting everyone we're leaving behind. When it comes to our spiritual awakening, if we feel that we're losing our humanity, we have to question and see if there's something seriously wrong going on. When people say that we're bossy, that we're arrogant, and I'm talking about myself here when I say we, I'm not implying that you're doing that, but maybe you are, who knows. But the moment we feel like we can no longer relate to everybody else in the streets, in the stores, on the television, in the newspapers, in the magazines, the moment we feel that we know something that they don't, that we're higher than they are, that we're heading for enlightenment and they're just lost, miserable. A lot of people use the word sheeple, which I hate because it's insulting to both sheep and to people. When we start to put ourselves on a pedestal and we put others below us, that's when we are the most lost and the most delusional. When we realize that in our lives, we're here to do our best, to be our brightest, to be our happiest, and to encourage and inspire others to also be their best, their brightest, their happiest. That's when that motivation and that excitement starts to awaken in us again. The last couple of months that I spent before coming back to myself, and I don't want to go into more explicit detail than that. I love the people of India, the country of India. In my last video, I said when I was in India because I didn't want to name the specific organization. Again, I don't want to talk against anyone. But when I was there, for the last month or two, I started re-experiencing what I experienced in elementary school. I didn't want to wake up in the mornings. My passion was gone. My enthusiasm for life was gone. I felt like others were against me, like life was against me, like even the organization I was part of was against me. I felt like a victim, and that made me want to lash out against others. It's only coming back to society, coming back to the Western world, but still keeping an appreciation for the Eastern world, that I'm feeling that motivation return once again. I've come back to my passion for crystal and gemstone jewelry, but not from the context I first jumped into it back when I was an Emily Carr University student in Vancouver. When I first got into stones, I was going for gems that are known to awaken the highest chakras, the crown, connection to infinity, to the cosmos, to space, the third eye, so that we can perceive that which isn't physically real. Now I'm looking at stones that root us back to the earth, connect us back to our stability, get us back into our emotions, get us back into our self-drive. And I can say it's so refreshing to just be physical again. I've started going swimming every day because I'm blessed to live in a building complex that has a pool included with rent. I've been going for long walks once again. And this is something that I highly value in life, and I encourage all of you guys to do as well. The more you can go outside and breathe the fresh air, the more you can immerse yourself in things like sitting by a warm fireplace and enjoying that natural element, or swimming in the water, putting your feet in a lake or a river or the ocean, safely of course, the more you can gaze at the stars or gaze at the clouds and just appreciate being alive, the more your excitement is going to be contagious to others, and you'll start making a real positive difference in the lives of others. The motivation to be alive should be a motivation to appreciate the gifts from others and to shower your gifts on others, giving and receiving. Why do people love birthdays and holidays? It's not just because they're getting stuff from people, it's also because they're giving things to people. If you've ever given somebody a gift, like one of your friends wants a scarf and you find exactly the right scarf, or somebody raves about a book but it's out of print and you find a copy of that book and you know, oh my God, this person is going to love this. When you see their reaction to that perfect present, doesn't that feel like 1,000,000,000 times better than if you got something you wanted? That joy of giving is part of what's always influenced me or motivated me to make videos like this one. I do read all the comments, and when somebody says that what I've said resonated with them, struck a chord, made them feel better, oh my gosh, I feel so much satisfaction in life. So I'm sorry for deleting old videos that may have resonated with you, but I do promise and commit I'm going to make more and more and more and keep striving to share things that may also inspire you. I still believe and value having a connection to existence, to the cosmos. I still love the idea of the third eye and seeing things on a deeper level. But I also, and maybe even more strongly, value giving to people what they actually need, being practical, not just standing on a corner pontificating about what I think is the best while ignoring those around me who are genuinely in need, but sharing. I don't want to be so closed-minded that I think my beliefs are the best if maybe somebody else has had an experience that I can learn and benefit from if I open my ears and listen. And I'm sure the same thing is there for all of us. When we start opening our hearts and melting down the layers of defenses we've put up around ourselves, it's a no-brainer. We look forward to waking up every morning because we're going to learn something new, share something new, and have fun. So like I've said before, get ready on this channel for makeup tutorials, art tutorials, jewelry tutorials, because that's the fun stuff that drives me. And I'm sorry if you don't like hearing me rant, but get ready for some more vegan rants and human rights rants and stuff like that, because that also motivates me. And of course, I'm going to share the crystals and stones I'm working with, because that's also something I still find fun. So for this particular video, I've been wearing honey calcite. No bees were involved in the making of this gem. It's just called that because it looks a lot like creamed honey in a necklace and in this bracelet. And of course, lots of pieces in my shop are made with this stone, like these little pendants here. Honey calcite is a stone of joy and happiness and prosperity and willpower. It resonates with the lower chakras, especially the Manipuraka, or the solar plexus, which is the center that makes us feel personally responsible and empowered to reach our goals, but to strive for those goals with joy, not with greed or with fear. When we work towards our goals without the greed to possess more than other people have or the fear of losing what we have, when we work towards our goals just with the enthusiastic happiness intrinsic in doing what we love to do, we become so unstoppable. And instead of just being open to receive and feeling entitled, we start making connections for ourselves. We start attracting wealth in the proper kind of a way. And when we've received what we have without feeling greedy or fearful to lose it, we will always be more and more generous to share it with others because there's no fear of not getting more of it back. I've been wearing this honey calcite, this bright yellow stone, shining like the sunlight, and just feeling so blessed by it. So if you are also into this stone, check out my Etsy shop, linked in the video description. Buy anything, and I'll send you as my personal gift one of these honey calcite pendants that I've made. I've been wearing them every day. I think you'll also enjoy them if this message resonates with you. And like I said, get ready for more videos. So please share your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll read it. I'll try to respond to as many of them as I can. Be blessed, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Love you guys. Bye for now.